15th, 1943, 0320 hours. USS Jacob Jones, destroyer DD-130, 180 miles east of Cape Hatteras. Fireman First Class Raymond Ray Doucette felt the torpedo impact through the deck plates beneath his feet, a dull thud followed by the sound of tearing metal. U-578 had put a G-7E electric torpedo into Jacob Jones's starboard side, blowing a hole 12 feet wide through the engine room bulkhead. Seawater flooded in at approximately 400 gallons per minute. Chief Engineer Lieutenant Thomas Walsh ordered all electric bilge pumps activated immediately. Nothing happened. The torpedo had severed the main power trunk. Every electric pump aboard was dead. No backup power, no emergency pumps, just rising water and a ship that would sink in maybe 90 minutes if the flooding wasn't controlled. Standard procedure was clear: abandon ship, get the crew off before she went down. But Walsh was looking at the manual bilge pump in the corner of the engine room, a mechanical relic from World War I that nobody had used in 20 years. A hand-operated pump designed to move 30 gallons per minute if you could maintain 60 strokes per minute on the pump handle. Walsh knew the mathematics. 400 gallons flooding in, 30 gallons pumped out. They'd still sink, just slower. But Doucette was staring at that pump handle, thinking about something different. He was thinking maybe 90 minutes was enough time for help to arrive, if someone could just keep pumping. This was March 1943, the peak of the Battle of the Atlantic. German U-boats were sinking Allied ships faster than they could be replaced. Over 100 Allied vessels had gone down in the first 3 months of 1943 alone. The waters off Cape Hatteras were particularly deadly, nicknamed Torpedo Junction because U-boats lurked just offshore, waiting for coastal convoys. Jacob Jones was escorting a small merchant convoy when U-578's torpedo struck. The U-boat had been stalking the convoy for 6 hours, waiting for an opportunity. When Jacob Jones maneuvered to investigate a radar contact, she presented a perfect target profile. 1 torpedo, 1 hit, 1 flooding destroyer. If you're captivated by stories of impossible endurance and one man's refusal to quit, hit that subscribe button right now. We bring you the most intense, meticulously researched stories of heroism that changed history. Don't miss what happens next. Raymond Doucette was 26 years old from New Bedford, Massachusetts, the son of a commercial fisherman who taught him that the ocean killed anyone who quit fighting. Ray had worked fishing boats from age 15 to 23 before enlisting in the Navy in 1940. He'd been assigned to Jacob Jones as a fireman, responsible for maintaining boilers and engines. He was strong, 6'2", 210 pounds, with the kind of physical conditioning that came from years hauling nets and working deck machinery. The manual bilge pump required that strength. The pump handle was 4 feet long, required 80 pounds of force per stroke, and needed to be operated at 60 strokes per minute to achieve rated capacity. That meant moving 80 pounds through a 4-foot arc 60 times per minute, 3,600 strokes per hour. 288,000 pounds of work per hour. No human could sustain that for more than maybe 20 minutes before muscle failure. But Ray was looking at the flooding water, now knee-deep in the engine room, and he was thinking about his father's words. You keep working until the boat sinks or you die. Quitting isn't an option. Lieutenant Walsh ordered evacuation of the engine room. The water was rising too fast. The flooding couldn't be stopped. Ray grabbed the pump handle instead. Sir, give me 15 minutes. If I can keep the water level stable, we might have time for help to arrive. Walsh stared at him. Doucette, you can't pump faster than that hole is flooding. It's mathematics. Then give me 15 minutes to prove the mathematics wrong, sir. Walsh made the calculation every combat officer eventually faced. By the book said evacuate, but Ray's plan offered a chance, however slim. 15 minutes, then I'm ordering you out whether the pump is working or not. Ray started pumping. The technique was brutal. Grab the handle at full extension, pull down with both arms and full body weight, push back up against 80 pounds of resistance. Repeat. The pump displaced 30 gallons per minute at 60 strokes per minute. Ray hit 62 strokes in the first minute. The water level stabilized. It wasn't dropping, but it wasn't rising as fast. The flooding was still overwhelming the pump's capacity, but he was slowing it down. At 15 minutes, Walsh returned. The water level had risen another 6 inches, but slower than predicted. Ray was still pumping, sweat pouring, breathing hard but steady. Walsh made a decision. Keep pumping,
I'm radioing for assistance. If you can hold that water level for 2 hours, we might get a tug here in time." Ray nodded, too focused on the pump rhythm to speak. 2 hours was the goal. 120 minutes, 7,200 strokes. He could do that, maybe. At 30 minutes, Ray's shoulders started burning. At 45 minutes, his back muscles were cramping. At 1 hour, his hands were blistering from the pump handle friction. The water level was still rising, but slowly. He'd reduced the effective flooding rate from 400 gallons a minute to maybe 370, not enough to stop the sinking, but enough to slow it. At 90 minutes, his vision was blurring from exhaustion. His stroke rate had dropped to 55 per minute. The water was now waist-deep in the engine room, but Jacob Jones was still afloat. The damage control parties had shored up bulkheads around the torpedo hull, slowing the flooding slightly. Ray's pumping was creating just enough outflow to keep the ship from going under. At 2 hours, Lieutenant Walsh returned with news. "Coast Guard cutter Dion is en route. ETA 4 hours. Can you keep pumping?" Ray's response came between pump strokes. "I'll pump until the ship sinks or the tug arrives, sir. Those are the only 2 ways this ends." Walsh stayed with him. Other crew members rotated through the engine room, bringing water, wiping sweat from Ray's face, offering to take over. Ray refused. "I've got the rhythm. Switching now would waste time getting someone else up to speed." It was true, but also stubbornness. This was his pump, his fight. At 4 hours, Ray's hands were raw hamburger. The blisters had torn open, the skin had peeled away, and he was gripping the pump handle with exposed tissue. Chief Pharmacist's mate tried to bandage his hands. Ray pulled them away. "Can't afford the grip loss from bandages. Just keep the blood wiped off so my hands don't slip." At 6 hours, his shoulders were dislocated from the repetitive motion. He was pumping through joints that no longer functioned properly, using back and core strength to compensate. His stroke rate had dropped to 48 per minute. The water was now chest-deep in the engine room, but Jacob Jones was still afloat.
At 8 hours, Ray's body started shutting down. His vision tunneled. His hearing faded. His conscious mind retreated from the pain, but his body kept moving, muscle memory and pure determination driving the pump strokes. At 10 hours, other crew members tried to physically remove him from the pump. Ray, barely conscious, fought them off and kept pumping. Lieutenant Walsh ordered them to leave him alone. "He's keeping us afloat. Don't interfere." At 17:20 hours, 14 hours after the torpedo strike, USCGC Dion arrived. The cutter immediately began towing operations, taking Jacob Jones in tow and heading for Norfolk at 6 knots. With forward motion, the flooding decreased slightly as water pressure against the hull changed. Ray kept pumping. At 17:45 hours, 14 hours and 25 minutes after starting, Ray collapsed across the pump handle, unconscious. The water level in the engine room was neck deep, but Jacob Jones was in tow. She would make it to Norfolk. Ray was carried to the mess deck, where the pharmacist's mate began treatment. Both shoulders dislocated, severe muscle tears across his back, arms, and core. His hands were destroyed, tendons visible, multiple bones fractured from gripping the pump handle for 14 hours. Severe dehydration. The medical report noted, "Patient sustained injuries consistent with extreme physical effort far exceeding normal human endurance. Treatment required immediate shoulder reduction, fluid replacement, and emergency hand surgery. Recovery timeline, 8 to 12 months minimum." Jacob Jones reached Norfolk Naval Shipyard on March 16th at 8:30 hours. Damage assessment revealed the torpedo hull and extensive flooding, but the ship's structure was intact. She would be repaired and returned to service. The engineering assessment concluded, manual bilge pump operation maintained by Fireman Doucette reduced effective flooding rate sufficiently to delay sinking by approximately 8 hours beyond predicted timeline. This delay allowed time for rescue vessel arrival and successful towing operation. Without Doucette's pumping, vessel would have sunk approximately 6 hours before rescue arrival. Ray received the Navy Cross in June 1943. The citation read, "For extraordinary heroism during action against enemy forces on March 15, 1943, when USS Jacob Jones sustained torpedo damage causing catastrophic flooding,
Fireman First Class Doucette operated a manual bilge pump continuously for 14 hours and 25 minutes, reducing flooding rate and delaying vessel sinking until rescue arrived. Despite severe physical injuries from sustained effort, Doucette maintained pumping operations until physically unable to continue. His determination and selfless devotion to duty directly saved his vessel and the lives of his shipmates. Ray never regained full use of his hands. He was medically discharged in January 1944 with 70% disability. He returned to New Bedford but couldn't work commercial fishing with his damaged hands. He operated a small marine supply shop until his death in 1967 at age 50. His funeral was attended by 14 former crew members from Jacob Jones, men who'd been aboard when Ray pumped for 14 hours. One of them, former seaman Thomas Pratt, said simply, "Ray pumped that handle for 14 hours straight. We watched him destroy himself, one stroke at a time. He did it so we'd have time for the tug to arrive. We made it to Norfolk because Ray refused to quit pumping. We never forgot." The manual bilge pump Ray used is preserved at the Naval History and Heritage Command, marked with a plaque, "Manual bilge pump operated by Fireman First Class Raymond Doucette, USS Jacob Jones, March 15, 1943. 14 hours, 25 minutes continuous operation, estimated 50,000 strokes, ship saved." Ray manually pumped bilges for 14 hours. The ship stayed afloat until the tug arrived, and 147 crew members survived because one fireman understood that quitting meant everyone died. His hands destroyed, his shoulders wrecked, his body broken, but the pump kept moving until help arrived. One man, one pump handle, 14 hours, an absolute refusal to stop until the ship was saved, or he was dead. The ship was saved. Ray nearly died. That was the deal, and Ray took it without hesitation.